Environmental activist groups use images of animal mothers and their young to call attention to the animal's plight. But such usage can be a double-edged sword. Even while these images use various visual rhetorical strategies to appeal for sympathy and rescue, some of these same strategies are eco-pornographic and reify Western ideological positions used to justify the human practices causing environmental issues. Bart Welling defines eco-pornography as a type of contemporary visual discourse made up of highly idealized, anthropomorphized views of landscapes and non-human animals. While these images are often composed or manipulated to stress their subjects' innate similarities to the human body and to human social and power structures, the images work to conceal both the material circumstances of their creation by humans and whatever impact humans may have had on the landforms and animals they depict. An instructive example of the implication of the replications of human social and power structures can be found in the visual constructions of predators. Such images present predators as safe and distanced from us through the lens and their otherness, and close to us through the recognizable construct of the mother-child bond. Mother, argues Lyndall Buchanan, is a construct that operates as a rhetorical resource. As such, mother can function as either an essentializing form, binding women to traditional roles, or as a source of empowerment. To illustrate this point, Buchanan points to academic discussion surrounding the Million Mom March. This event was perceived as either reifying women's traditional roles and undermining their position against gun violence, or as using their credibility as mothers to make claims regarding the violence's cost. More importantly, in public usage, Buchanan contends, mother is still used as a vehicle for traditional ideology associating the role with maternal instinct, domesticity, reproduction, nurturing, morality, and self-sacrifice. This set of ideological attributes are factors in how motherhood of animals is represented in eco-pornographic images, as our analysis shows. These selected attributes elide specific features of animal motherhood and bring animals into a state of anthropomorphism. Ecofeminist theorist Val Plumwood explains how categories of women and nature became linked subordinated terms and dualisms naturalized in Western thinking. Other subordinated terms, such as primitive, body, and so on, are interconnected to this logic. As Carolyn Merchant has remarked, the linkage of these lesser terms created metaphoric tropes within Western discourse at the start of the scientific revolution that conceptualized nature as chaotic and in need of scientific control. This allowed for mechanism and the domination and mastery of nature, two core concepts in the modern world. Donna Haraway explained the mechanistic project of objective scientific inquiry validated the God trick and the God's eye view, a key feature of representation in eco-pornographic images. To be clear, we are not saying that by perpetuating the topos of mother within eco-pornographic imagery that these visual representations have direct causal connection to environmental degradation. On the contrary, they both help and hurt. The paradoxical nature of these images are such that, as eco-pornography, they undermine the very environmental messages they are meant to tout. They also spur the viewer to action by the very fact that they promote a God's eye view of nature and imbue the viewer with power over geographical features and animals.
In Communicating Nature, Julia Corbett discusses how we communicate the meaning of animals. For instance, wolves, which were once portrayed as evil creatures, have been humanized through various media, which eventually led to wolf population restoration. The polar bear has had a similar trajectory and appear across the websites of three well-known environmental groups: National Resources Defense Council, or NRDC, the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, and National Geographic. The polar bear species can be viewed as indicative of the larger groups of predators on each site, such as the tiger, lion, and wolf. All three sites use the polar bear to point to the effects of global warming. When we read, "Save the polar bears," we also read, "The earth is getting too warm, the ice caps are melting, and the polar bears are running out of space in which to live." The image of polar bears as mother creates a representation of a nurturing animal that needs our protection. Our methodology considers the visual in terms of socio-cultural significance, practices, and power relationships. In our analysis, we look at how relationships are articulated and might be contested by ways of seeing. We ground this in the work of Kress and Van Leeuwen and Bart. Kress and Van Leeuwen offer a heuristic for understanding such images and reading images, the grammar of visual design. A photograph calls upon the audience to bear personal witness to the experience of the animals and thus lends credibility to the argument for protecting it. On all three sites, polar bears are portrayed as good-natured mums who enjoy playing with and caring for their cubs. And as we read the message of mother and cub, we may also read the connoted message of mother and child, and animals can then become as if representations of the viewer's idealized self-image. These images work to connect mother with nature. As mother, the bear is depicted in a role that sets it up, however subtly, as a presumed natural resource in sight of political and cultural subordination that positions the animal as one in need of rescuing, of victim, of other, that undercuts the animal's agency, power, and lived reality as a creature well adapted to take care of itself. NRDC's selection of images includes 10 mother and cub images out of 14 total images of polar bears, and all but one of these images feature a female bear with a single cub. In this NRDC image, the horizontal angle gives viewers a frontal point of view, which implies a sense of involvement, as opposed to the oblique angle, which suggests detachment. The frontal plane of the participant and the frontal plane of the photographer are parallel to one another, thus signifying an alliance between the photographer and the participant. Because the image offers the audience a sense of engagement with the bears, this photograph's argument allows viewers into the world of bears and solicits action on behalf of all of us who view them. This kind of image is what Kress and Van Leeuwen refer to as a demand. In the case of helping polar bears win in court, the bears situated as mother and child seemingly ask viewers to not only identify with them, but also require human help. The cub is also in a human-like stance, which many human mothers experience. This is the posture in which a child, just at the onset of autonomy, is willing to leave his mother's side, but often returns to place a hand on mother's leg just to ensure that she is still near enough for protection. While the image represents the experience of the polar bear, it also signifies a human experience, in which a child receives reassurance of protection from their mother. This connection is emphasized in the caption below the image. With the reference to the bear as mom, the notion of female polar bear as human is put forth not only visually, but linguistically as well. WWF features a polar bear slideshow as well, in which 5 of the 10 slides represent images of mothers and cubs. In this WWF image, the bodies of all 3 bears are photographed at an oblique angle, but the eyes of 2 of the bears confront the viewer. Here, involvement and detachment relate to demand and offer. The body of a participant may be angled away from the plane of the viewer, while her gaze may be turned towards it. The result is a double message. This may have the effect of presenting the polar bears in their own environment, while at the same time anthropomorphizing them as children snuggling against their mother. National Geographic also features a slideshow for polar bears, but both photos show the bears at oblique angles, with the bears gazing away from the viewer. This view emphasizes the objective God's eye view of Haraway. The oblique angle separates the bear from the world of the viewer, and therefore offers the bears to viewers as items of information without a sense of involvement. Despite this impersonal framing, these bears are still personified as mother helping her child, and the caption below the photo humanizes the bears. The linguistic message serves as a textual reply, which directs interpretation of the image, and the mother is embodied or humanized as devoted and caring, rather than an impersonal, instinctive animal.
Such paradoxes are not new to activist work. Noel Sturgeon and Diane Fuss have commented that some rhetorical appeals considered essentializing can be useful political tools. The positions that essentialize mother and nature in the ways we have described here are of value to activists, but that is not to say that they are not problematic. What we suggest is a negotiation between these two positions, that of the ecopornographic and that which we will call the ecological network. We recommend an approach that demonstrates that the God's eye position is a myth and that humans are a significant consequential material presence. We also recommend that the animal mother's subjectivity be complexified. Mothers nursing, mothers teaching hunting, mothers and offspring consuming prey. Images of this type are more than one-dimensional and safe. Given humankind's history of eradicating predators, this might seem self-defeating, but to ignore this reality denigrates those in non-Western societies whose experience with predators is not at a safe, convenient, anthropomorphized distance. We should acknowledge the beauty and ecosystemic value of the animalistic non-human nature as one worth saving, even if it does not fit our anthropocentric agenda.